Brought to you by...
Hello friends, today we are taken back to the finale of Halloween 2, ignoring everything that followed, and returning to the series' roots as we take a look at Halloween H20. Also known as Halloween 20 years later, and Jamie Lee Curtis is back. 2 decades after surviving a massacre on October 31st, 1978. Former babysitter Laurie Strode finds herself hunted by persistent knife-wielding Michael Myers. Laurie now lives in Northern California, under an assumed name, where she works as the headmistress of a private school, but it's not far enough to escape Myers, who soon discovers her whereabouts. As Halloween descends upon Laurie's peaceful community, a feeling of dread weighs upon her, with good reason. Something that I find interesting regarding this film is that even though their aim was to ignore many of the previous sequels, the structure still allows for them to exist. We get an explanation that details the fact that Laurie Strode faked her death sometime after the events of Halloween 2, and has been living under an assumed name for the past 20 years. That being said, it's very plausible that during that time, the events of Halloween 4, 5, and 6 all still occurred as we saw them in those films. And now that the Cult of Thorn is no more, Michael has made a return to his original intent to track down and kill Laurie. While I doubt that this was even a consideration for the filmmakers, I think that it was a considerate way to build this new narrative without completely discrediting the work of those responsible for the previous sequels. This film takes Michael out of Haddonfield for the first time, sending him to a private school campus in California, and brings Jamie Lee Curtis back to the franchise that jump-started her career, with the hopes of bringing things to a just end. She takes the reins back up with ease, and brings us an older, more experienced, and cautious Laurie, now with a son on the cusp of his 17th birthday. A fact that slightly begs the question as to why she kept him and not young Jamie. But we are just going to ignore that for now. Josh Hartnett was brought on to portray Laurie's son John, a teen straining to break out from under his mother's overprotective grasp, and yearning for her to leave behind the events of her past. In my opinion, he plays this part very well, delivering a very believable performance that clashes perfectly with Jamie Lee in all the right ways. He even went so far as to purposely fight against the advances of the makeup and wardrobe departments in order to keep his hair and clothing disheveled, to better create a more believable teenage aesthetic. The cast is rounded out by a few other generic teens and a security guard played by LL Cool J, who I have to say brought some much enjoyed levity to the role. We are also treated to a couple of cameo performances, including our titular smoking nurse from the first 2 films, who opens this film and delivers her final moments in the franchise before meeting her end to Michael's blade. Then we have Janet Leigh, Jamie's own mother, popping up as her secretary, even sharing a heartfelt moment that pays homage by featuring the Psycho car and a piece of the score from Psycho. Visually, this film features a highly cinematic look, combining dynamic camera work with a similar bland color palette to the previous films, that I feel helps fit this one well into the mix. We get a decent balance of bloody kills that don't usually go too far over the top, and bring things back down somewhere closer to the first 2 films. This one abandons the traditional opening credit sequence and attempts to give us a more 90s style one, which for me feels far too similar to the ones in the Final Destination series. Despite the fact that they do include a vast amount of history from the first couple installments of the franchise, and a voiceover that attempts to recreate some of Sam Loomis's dialogue. Michael's mask went through a lot of problems during this production, and was changed a couple times. As a result, there wasn't a lot of time that could be dedicated to reshoots, so throughout the film, you can clearly tell that the mask changes from shot to shot. There's even one really cringy shot of a terribly bad CGI mask that is overlaid over the performer. Another issue that came during the post-production stages was in the scoring of the film. Apparently, the final mixing of the score opted for a far more unique take on things that actually felt a little closer to something that Hitchcock might have done if he was still making movies today. This didn't sit well with the producers, and what we ended up with was a strange hodgepodge that consisted of small pieces of the score mixed with sections from score from other movies to create a more basic, somewhat lackluster musical composition. There's just nothing unique about it, which is a little unfortunate. I absolutely can't not talk about this film's climax, so spoilers if you have never seen this one. The final moments of H20 build up beautifully to a final conflict, pinning Michael to a tree and giving Laurie the upper hand. He reaches out for her, and for a moment, she feels for him. She feels the family ties that bind them as brother and sister, and she reaches back. But one final look into his eyes is all that it takes for her to realize that it's a mistake, that he will never change, and that it all has to end. That's when she swings the axe in her hands and decapitates him, kicking hard into John Carpenter's main Halloween score. In this moment, the audience explodes. Your heart leaps in the culmination of 20 years of build-up to this moment. The evil is finally dead. For me, having grown up watching these movies, this moment was it. I had waited so long for the true finale to this franchise, and it was glorious. But of course, it wasn't over. After 20 years of Halloween films, this was exactly what I wanted as a kid in the 90s. It delivered a fresh take on the characters that I knew and loved, and advanced them, adapting them to the times and creating a story that both brought a thrilling cycle of tension and kills, alongside the closure that we as horror fans have all been waiting for. Though I, of course, didn't want to see these films end at that time, I felt satisfied if they had decided to. I'm giving Halloween H20 an A-. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments below. I know many people out there didn't like this one the way that I did, and I'm very interested to hear about why. While it may not have been the perfect end to an honestly imperfect franchise, I feel that H20 brought things to a logical conclusion at the time when the series desperately needed it. If you enjoyed today's video, please feel free to let me know. It's just a quick scroll down there to that comment section below. If you're enjoying the channel more than words can describe, shoot me a thumbs up and please feel free to subscribe. If you would like to show your support even more, come find ETF on Patreon or Tippy, where every pledge and every tip brings rewards galore, not to mention allowing me to bring you more films to explore. But all jokes and rhymes aside, if you have any films that you would like me to check out, or that you might like to see reviewed on this channel, feel free to reach out to me here down in the comments. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and I will catch you all next time. Thanks for watching.